They said she was a good woman, a perfect wife, a quiet lady. But that was before she buried her husband alive. And what the world didn't know was why.
In the calm outskirts of a town called Umwagu, lived Adaora, a woman everyone admired. Tall, elegant, and soft-spoken, she was known for her peaceful demeanor and her stunning compound with the red bougainvillea flowers that danced in the wind. She was married to Chike, a charming, light-skinned businessman who ran a chain of electronic stores. From the outside, they looked perfect. But inside the walls of their home was a nightmare. Chike had secrets. Dangerous secrets. At first, it was the shouting. Then the bruises. Then the nights she would cry alone in the backyard, burying her face in the earth so no one would hear. But Adaora stayed. For her son. For her dignity. Until the day she discovered the box under the floorboard of his study. It was a black metal case. Inside it were bundles of foreign currencies and photographs. Horrible photographs. Images of women. Beaten. Bound. Some dead. She dropped the box. Her breath caught. Her hands trembled. That night, she didn't sleep. That night, she knew Chike was more than just an abuser. He was a killer. But she was smart. She didn't confront him. She played along. Cooked for him. Slept beside him. Watched him. Waited. Then came the final straw. Her younger sister, Adaora, had come to visit. Bright, playful, and full of life. She stayed 3 nights. On the 4th, she vanished. Chike claimed she left early for school. But Adaora knew better. 2 days later, she found Adaora's phone hidden behind the water tank. She wept. Then, she snapped. She prepared carefully. 1 step at a time. She started mixing small amounts of sleeping powder in his food. Not enough to kill, just enough to make him drowsy. Every night, he slept heavier. Until the 7th day, when she gave him enough to keep him unconscious for hours. She dressed in all black. She dug the grave herself, behind the cassava farm, where nobody ever went. That night, she dragged his body, limp, snoring, alive, wrapped in black plastic. It took everything in her to lower him in. As she shoveled the dirt back over him, her eyes were dry. Her voice steady. Rest in peace, Chike, you finally found silence. People asked questions. Where is your husband? She smiled. He traveled to China for business. They nodded. They believed her. After all, he traveled often. Weeks passed. Then months. But one night, she heard a knock at the back door. She opened it slowly, and nearly collapsed. There stood Chike alive, covered in scars, and his eyes, oh, his eyes, were no longer human. I clawed my way out, he whispered. He wasn't dead. He had been in a coma, but breathing. Buried alive. For 2 days, he screamed underground. Then, like a demon reborn, he broke through the soil and vanished into the forest. He had watched her from afar. Waiting. Watching. He had changed. Something in him had died in that grave, but something else had risen. Now, he wanted revenge. But Adaora was ready. She grabbed the matchbox. And with 1 spark, she set fire to the entire cassava field, trapping him as he lunged at her. His screams echoed through the wind. But no one came. No one ever came. By morning, only ashes remained. 6 months later, Adaora stood before a judge, not as a criminal, but as a witness. The investigation had unearthed shocking evidence of Chike's crimes, hidden graves, trafficked victims, offshore accounts. She was cleared. She opened a center for abused women. People called her a survivor. A warrior. But late at night, when the wind howled, she sometimes heard scratching sounds beneath the soil. Just wind, she told herself. Just wind. Adaora thought it was over after the fire. She started rebuilding her life. She put up new walls, painted the house white, changed the curtains. But no matter what she changed, something always felt off. Sometimes at night, her dogs barked at nothing. The kitchen light would flicker. Her son's toys would move from where she placed them. And every time she stood by the window, she felt like someone was watching her. Was it paranoia? Guilt? Or had something followed her from that grave? While cleaning Chike's old room one day, she found something hidden inside the vent, a leather-bound diary, worn and blood-stained. Inside were entries. Not business records. Confessions. She was my sixth. The others were too loud. But this one, she begged me in Igbo. Like Adaora used to. I almost stopped. Almost. Ijeoma wouldn't stop screaming. She looked like Adaora. I buried her with my own hands behind the second tree. But she laughed as I covered her face with soil. Laughed. Adaora dropped the diary. Her fingers trembled. He had killed more than she thought. And Ijeoma's body had never been buried where she thought. Desperate for peace, Adaora contacted a traditional priestess from her hometown. The old woman, Ezenwani Yogo, came silently and walked around the house. She stopped at the backyard. He's not resting, the priestess said. Because you didn't bury him, the earth did. Adaora was confused. Then she explained, the soul of a man buried alive is trapped between two worlds. Unless you return what was taken and cleanse the land with truth, he will never stop haunting you. That night, thunder shook the sky. The next morning, a body surfaced in the village stream. It was Ijeoma. Muddy. Twisted. Eyes wide open. And in her hand was a scrap of Chike's shirt. Adaora's son, Kamsi, only 5 years old, began talking to shadows. Laughing alone in dark corners. One night, he said something that broke Adaora's spirit. Daddy told me to dig. He said he's still cold. She froze. Where, Kamsi? The boy pointed outside. Behind the cassava farm. Behind the cassava farm. The same spot she thought the fire had erased. Adaora dug again. She didn't find Chike's body. She found bones. Dozens of them. Skulls. Rings. Chains. Women's jewelry. It wasn't just a burial. It was a dumping ground. Chike had been a serial killer for over a decade. Word spread. The police came. The media followed. Adaora was praised as a brave widow who brought justice. But inside, she knew the truth. He wasn't dead. Not truly. Because she kept dreaming of him, his burning face, eyes glowing red, crawling out of the ground and whispering. You buried me once, but you didn't bury the evil. Then came the final horror. Her son disappeared. Only a note was left in his toy box. Now you will know what it means to live in darkness. Desperate to find Kamsi, Adaora visited an old friend, Inspector Collard, a retired detective who had chased cold cases years ago. He showed her something chilling. A case file from 10 years back. A man who buried his victims alive. Tortured them. Burned their bodies after death. The killer was never found. The victims matched the jewelry Adaora had found. And the main suspect. Chike. But he was too rich, too clean, too protected. Until Adaora came into his life. With Collard's help and the priestess guiding them, they performed a ritual of earth unbinding, digging up every hidden grave. As they reached the final one, the ground shook violently. Suddenly, a hand burst from the soil. Not decayed. Not dead. Chike. Alive again. But not human. His body was blackened, covered in roots and worms. His eyes burned red. He rose and smiled. "You brought me back." But as he lunged at Adaora, Kolod fired 2 bullets into his chest, blessed bullets covered in red earth and palm oil. He collapsed. The priestess said softly, "Now, bury him where no soul can return." They buried him deep in the old slave wells of Umwagu, a forbidden pit said to hold the screams of the past. That night, Adaora dreamt of Ijeoma smiling at her, holding Kamsi's hand. "You freed us." Adaora woke with tears in her eyes, and found Kamsi asleep beside her. He had returned, unharmed. No one knew how. Adaora left the town and started a new life by the ocean. Sometimes she walks the beach, holding her son's hand. But when the waves get too quiet, she whispers, "Let the dead stay buried, even if they were once the man you loved."